Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. I am a divorce lawyer who is passionate about helping all of us to use the adversity in our life to show up as the best version of ourselves. Aaron Bender, over to you.
We are back with another guest today, Dave Sanderson, one of the passengers from the Miracle on the Hudson plane landing from, can you believe, 16 years ago.
Oh my, I know. Wow. Time really flies.
I cannot believe I was working news at the time. I don't recall if I was on the air. I likely was not. It was in the middle of the day, our time here.
Well, you were on the air, but just not at that moment.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And so going in that evening, the place was a buzz. Just absolutely a buzz. We could not stop talking about it, could not get enough of it for weeks.
Really?
Yeah. Fascinating story. And of course, they made the movie about it. And here we are 16 years later, still talking about it because it was a miracle.
Well, we are still talking about it because Dave Sanderson really he did exactly what we always talk about on Made for More. He used the adversity in that super difficult, terrifying situation to go on and do extraordinary things. That's what it's all about. We are joined today by author of multiple books and survivor from the Miracle on the Hudson and some other things that we're going to talk about, Dave Sanderson. Dave, welcome to the show.
Holly, thank you very much for having me today.
Yes, I am really excited to have you. One, because I read your book, one of your books, your most recent book, The Limitless Life. I thought it was a fantastic book. And when I was reading the book, I learned, of course, not only about your whole story as it related to the plane going into the Hudson River, which we'll definitely talk about that, but I also learned you were the director of security for Tony Robbins,
That's correct.
I find so fascinating, and I want to ask you a lot of questions about that.
Let's rock.
Okay, let's do it. So, first of all, because I think your time with Tony Robbins was actually before the Miracle on the Hudson, correct?
Before and during and after.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the burning question that I have is I've done a lot of personal development, and I just believe like mindset is just so critical, which you do write about that in your book. Like, I just believe that is the most critical thing that you can work on and have and be aware of. So what was it like being in that close of proximity to the ultimate, Tony Robbins probably wouldn't want me to call him a guru, but the ultimate mindset guru?
Yeah, I thank you very much. I was very honored to have that opportunity. I started with Tony in 1994. It was actually the first time I actually did anything around that world. But very blessed when he asked me to be his director of security in 1999 and 2000. And one of the things he teaches, if you read or know anything about Tony, is proximity is power.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned early in my career is if I have proximity to masters, that would some way come back to me some way. And my first mentor I started with him in 1983, and he was a master, art of success. And so when Tony asked me to be that, I had proximity to the master. And, I learned pretty much everything he taught in public, but it's those insights, those distinctions when you have that one-on-one time with him, that he can really hone in on some things. And I was very blessed. And one of the things that a lot of people do not know is Tony was the only person that called me that night after the Miracle on the Hudson while I was in the hospital. So we had a very close relationship.
Yes, amazing. Yeah. So one of the things that I think, not everybody takes advantage of opportunities like that, because you weren't necessarily there to learn from Tony and to work on your own mindset and to do your own personal development. You were there in your own professional capacity. But it seems like from reading your book and just, I've watched some of the stuff that you have on Instagram and things like that, like it seemed like you really did take that opportunity to glean all the power that you could from being in that proximity. Is that accurate to say?
That is very accurate. I every time I'm around somebody, I try to learn something from everybody. But being around that kind of energy and seeing how he really impacted people's lives. It really impacted me, and having those like I said, those one-on-one times with him to really ask him some very intricate questions and getting those distinctions is amazing. Because here's the inside baseball. He's the one that actually really drove me to do what I'm doing right now. I wasn't planning on doing what I'm doing, but he drove me to do it. He said, "Why you keep working for that company? You're able to do this." And one thing you learn, Holly, through all these kinds of experiences is there's a lot of people that have more confidence than you have in yourself. And he had more
Yes.
confidence in me than I did at that point, which really drove me to be able to do what I do today and hopefully impact people's lives.
Right. That you make such a good point. Sometimes like when you have someone else on the outside that believes in you so much more than you believe in yourself, it really kind of gives you wings. Don't you agree?
I agree. And when I was writing my second book, From Turmoil to Triumph, Tony is very kind to write some testimonial in the book for me. And one of the things he shared in that book, which is what the book is really all about, is why everybody needs a mentor, somebody to do that, push them and be able to do that. And he talks in his testimony about how if he didn't have Jim Rohn, he wouldn't be Tony Robbins.
Right. Yeah.
And all he did, he said, he's very gracious. Well, all he said he did with me is take what I learned and really start giving me distinctions so I could actually take it to the next level to help other people. So, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I read in your book, which really I almost felt convicted about, was at one point he came to you and said, I'm going to find your replacement as the director of security because I want you to go on and do bigger and better things.
That's right.
And I just thought, wow, that's like, as a leader, you know, I have some pretty amazing people on my team. And it's like thinking, you know, when you like, that's truly wanting the best for someone. When you're willing to sacrifice like some of your top talent because you know they can do better things, like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, when we had that discussion in Chicago, we were actually in his suite in Chicago right before a firewalk, and we had that discussion. And at first, I was sort of taken back, but he knew as long as I was with him, I would never be able to accomplish what I was going to do. Right. He knew that, and I sort of knew that, but that was sort of my crutch, right? Mm-hmm. I had that crutch going, and with all the turmoil that I was going through after the plane crash and the business and the work and family stuff going on, that was sort of my certainty. But he knew if I was going to have the impact I could have, and hopefully am having, he needed to cut me loose. So it was one of the biggest gifts that I was ever given, even though it sounds like it was a negative experience. It actually turned out to be one of the most positive experiences in my life.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the way it goes? You know, like those really hard things they are gifts, usually wrapped in a problem.
Right.
But if you unwrap it, you will unveil a gift.
That's right.
So
exactly.
Speaking of really hard things, let's talk about the plane crash. It was, I guess, 16 years ago now, which is hard to believe. It does seem like it wasn't that long ago. I remember it in real time happening. But it was 16 years ago. So tell us, for anyone that may not remember the specifics, tell us the actual story.
So here's a Cliff Notes version. So I was not supposed to be on that plane. I was scheduled on a later flight. Got on the earlier flight because we ended our business day early because we started our day at 5 a.m. that morning in a distribution center in Brooklyn, New York. So I got the opportunity to go home early. So it's like, great. Called a travel agent, worked with her, and she put me on flight 1549. Okay. So, I wasn't supposed to be on that flight, but, everything's normal takeoff, right? Everything's good. I mean, we were delayed, but have you ever been out of LaGuardia? That's no big deal. It's like going out of LAX, right? You're probably always delayed. No big deal. Yep. So it's no one was really out of sorts because of that. But about a minute after is when I heard the explosion. It was a loud explosion, and when you're on a plane and you hear explosion, that definitely gets your attention.
Yeah.
But then later, the next thing is you're over New York City having a plane in an explosion.
Right.
That's another level, right?
Yes.
So, so you don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden the plane goes quiet. And what I tell people, I think God's grace entered for the first moment of that flight right then because no one knew what happened on the left side of the plane where I was sitting at 15A. Also happened on the right side of the plane. A double bird strike at the exact same second. So everybody only heard one explosion on the plane. Okay. And my belief system says, if I think if people would have heard boom, boom, people are now thinking probably something different, right?
Right.
So I think, people thought, well, we have another engine. We'll just go back to the airport and get another plane. And that's was typically the thought most people I've talked to on the plane thought at that exact second. Well, fine. We're going back to the airport. But then all of a sudden, you're gliding past New York City and skyscrapers are, basically above you. And you're like, wow, I've never seen that, right? Like that angle.
Right.
And then you look out the window and all of a sudden you see this big bridge, which happened to be the George Washington Bridge. coming up, and you're like, I've never seen that this close.
Right.
And then
Did
all of a
you
sudden,
know you were going down?
we were going down. I mean,
Yeah.
he only got 3,000 feet, and by the time he got to the George Washington, he was 1,000 feet. See, and the
Gosh.
bridge is 600 feet up, so he cleared the bridge by only roughly 400 feet, which doesn't get enough talked about. I mean, I talk about it all the time because I think it's a miracle. That's a miracle.
Right.
Because if he would have gone right into that bridge, now you're looking at something bigger than probably 9/11. I mean, you got all these things going on, right?
Oh my
But
gosh.
he got it over the bridge. He said his only words. He said, "This is your captain. Brace for impact."
Oh.
And that's the moment I knew, and I think the other people I know on the plane knew something serious is going on, because you never hear a captain say something like that.
I've never heard that. Thank God. Knock on wood. Oh my gosh.
If
Yeah.
you ever hear that one, you know something's going down.
Right.
Literally going down.
Right. Literally going down.
Literally going down. So
Yes.
so as he was crossing over the bridge, I started praying, just sort of get my mind right. I mean, I had to get alignment. That's one of the things I talk about. You got to have clarity, right? You got, when everybody else is losing their mind around you, got to keep your head. And one of the great things of being with Tony all those years, I learned how to manage my state, how to manage my head, right?
Yes.
So when everybody else's minds are going, you're sort of keeping your mind straight. And I just went in alignment with my Creator. I said, okay, if I'm not coming back, at least I know I think you and I are good, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
But then,
right.
yeah. You don't want to be going, saying something bad and you're going down. It's like, I want to be good with the big guy, right?
That's right.
So as you cross over the bridge, it was about 60 seconds after we crossed over the bridge where we crashed into the river. And he estimates he hit between about 120, 130 miles an hour.
Okay.
So it was an extremely hard hit. And the back of the plane was where it hit first. And that's where I was, in the back of the plane at 15A.
Okay.
So it was a very violent hit.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you get done, you're skidding, you get knocked around a little bit. You look up and look out that window, and you see light through the window, like, wow, I made it.
Right.
But now you have another problem. That plane's sinking in ice cold water.
Oh my God.
So now you got to get out of a sinking plane in a river.
Right.
And that's where I tell people there's really two major miracles: getting the plane down, where the captain gets all the credit. Now you got to get all the passengers and crew out, which is another miracle.
Right.
So, that was what happened. And then, my game plan, I played sports hockey all my life. And, we never went into a game without a game plan, right? What were we going to do?
Yeah.
So my game plan was, we were going down, was aisle up out. I just kept saying in my head, aisle up out, aisle up out. So if I survive this thing, at least I had a game plan.
Right.
So I go, fine, now it's time to execute, right? Now it's time to execute. I'm waist deep into 36-degree water right now.
Yeah.
Water's rushing in this plane, right? So you got to take action. So I got to the aisle. Okay, right, let's go. Right now, I got to the aisle to go up and out. But then something happened to change that moment for me. And what happened to me was, I heard my mom start talking to me. And my mom passed away in 1997. But when I was a child, she would say something to me. It just popped into my head at that moment. It was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And that's what changed the entire day for me, because when I heard that, I tell people, my mom wasn't telling me what to do. She was saying, if you do this, God will take care of you. It's your choice.
Yeah.
It's your choice, right? You got to make it. One of the things you learn, you got to make decisions in life.
Right.
And my decision was not to go up and out. It was to go towards the back of the plane and see if anybody needed help. So I climbed over the seats to get towards the back of the plane, got to the back of the plane, and it was about chest deep water back there, because that's where all the water's rushing in.
Yeah.
And people were moving pretty fast, so I got behind the last person.
Okay.
And you got to remember, frame this up. This is late afternoon, New York, winter, and you're inside a plane that's sinking.
Yeah.
And so
Oh
it's
my
dark.
gosh.
It's getting dark, late afternoon,
Gosh.
and it's already overcast, and it's been snowing all day.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see. So you just start making your way out, right? You start feeling your way out. And all of a sudden I see the light on the right side of the plane at 10F, like, I'm out of here. So I started to get out like everybody else. All of a sudden I looked up, and there was no room on that wing for me. It was already filled.
Gosh.
There's no room on the boat.
Yeah.
And that's why I was inside the plane, waist deep in 36-degree water for about 7 minutes, and became the last passenger out of the plane. That's how it all happened.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when you finally got out of the plane, then what happened?
I had to swim for my life, because I felt the plane shift and I felt it was going down. So I jumped and swam.
Okay.
And I tell people, it was the longest 15-yard swim of my life,
Oh my gosh.
because I was fully clothed, and it was 36-degree water, but also there was jet fuel in the water.
Oh.
And that's why you see me wearing glasses today. because
Oh.
I got jet fuel in my eyes. They gave me glasses sort of correct that.
Oh,
But
wow.
I got there. I got to one of the ferries and yelling climb. I got up, can't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I heard my mom talk to me again.
Mm,
Because the word my mother hated most in life was the word can't.
mm.
If you grew up in our house, my sister and brother and I, we said can't you? If you can't do it, you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized later, after all this sort of settled down, my mother's worldview in life, before she passed away, was if you can't, you must. And that
Yeah.
became something that's just a driving force for me. If you can't, you must.
Mm.
So I got one arm up, somebody grabbed it, got the other arm up, somebody grabbed it. I don't know who these two guys are to this day. 16 years, I still don't know who they are, but they pulled me on the ferry. And that's how I got out of the water. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's my mother, played a lot of role in this, she passed away in 97. But I tell people, those things your parents teach you when you're young,
Mm-hmm.
that's why my first book's called Moments Matter. Because all those
Yeah.
moments they teach you
Right.
will come back to you someplace. They
Yes.
will
Oh
come
my
back. You just don't know when
gosh.
and where, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is an incredible story. But I think from reading your book, one of the things, and I've had chills the whole time you've been telling it, but one of the things when I was reading your book that just was like, had me frozen was not that long after, because you were not home. This wasn't your hometown. You
In
had
New
to get
York
on
City.
another plane
Yep.
and
Yep.
fly home.
Yep.
Oh
So
my
how that
gosh.
happened was, I was on all those TV shows, right, doing all
Yeah.
that stuff, right, and they U.S. Airways offered to fly my wife up to New Jersey to be with me, but
Mhm.
she didn't want to get on a plane. Plus, she had 4 kids at home, freaking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So U.S. Airways took great care of me. I say nothing but great things about them. They did great
Hmm.
things, but the only way I was going to get home was get on a plane and sort. But your mind is all over the place right now.
Right.
So I was just being moved around, Kaylee. I was, you do this, you go here. They're grabbing my arm to take me places. So the next day I did fly back, but the hardest flight was the next week when my
Wow.
company asked me to fly to Michigan on business the next
Right.
week. That
Yes.
was the toughest flight I've ever taken in my life.
Yes, because you had the choice. I remember your book saying like you had to get home. Okay,
Yep.
so it's like, okay, I got to get on a flight to get home. But then the very next week to make a choice to say yes when
Yep.
they asked you to come, or they said, "Can you come?" or something, and you made the choice to say yes, which meant to get on another
Yep.
flight.
Yep.
But you say that was a great choice, right? Looking back?
It was, at first my wife was not really enthusiastic about that, to be
I
very
can
candid.
imagine. Yeah.
And candidly, I wasn't really thrilled either.
Right.
But it turned out to be a great decision because, you got to go back, once again, you got to have reference in all these things. This is 2009 where we're going through a recession, right? So
Yeah.
times are a little tight. So the
Right.
company was putting me on the cheapest flight out, and the cheapest flight out was on Delta, which was
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with Delta. I love Delta, but I was a rock star on U.S. Airways, right?
Right.
I mean, I get anything I wanted, right?
Yeah.
I'm nobody on Delta. They put me in the
Right.
last row. And I'm like,
Oh
so we
my
take off, and
gosh.
this thing's bumping up and down. I'm sort of freaking out a little bit, right? I'm like, and the
Yes.
flight attendant came back and she recognized me from when I was on Fox and Friends the previous week. She saw me on Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
And she said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'll get there." Right? I'm just like freaking out a little bit. So all of a sudden, the captain walks back, and we had a little talk about it. At first, you see a captain walk out of the cockpit, and you're like, "Shh," hopefully they're not going to kick me off the plane because I'm freaking out. But
Right.
he and I had this talk, and if I had not got back on that plane, I may never been back on the plane.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and we still have many people from that day still haven't got back on a plane.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it turned out to be the right decision, even though it probably wasn't the wise decision in the moment. It turned out to be the right decision because I had to. You have to face that fear. You have to
Right.
face the fear, right?
Yes.
And so yeah, I write about that in the book, and it's like you know, you know, I don't know why I did it, but I was being led by probably another thought process that you just got to do it. You got to step up.
Yes. Well, one of the things you write in your book was actually it might have actually been about this exact moment. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you'll know and you can tell me.
Okay.
But you say that was the true start of my recovery. Or maybe it was when somebody offered you a coat, but
Yep.
it was I think on that
That's
same trip.
exactly right. That's when I started bouncing back.
Yes, you say when you face challenges, uncertainty, and loss, there are people who will step in and help. There are always opportunities and ways to bounce back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My day job is I'm a divorce lawyer. And so I'm always sort of dealing with people at sort of this time in their life where sometimes they feel very hopeless and they feel like there is no bouncing back. They feel like they've lost their family, they've lost part of their identity, they've lost half their wealth, like all of these things. And so I think, your particular story is surrounding a plane crash, but I think the same principles apply to any of us that are sort of feeling down and need some sort of hope that we can bounce back.
Yeah, one of the belief systems that I have is, problems are not permanent, right? They're temporary. And
Yes.
if you look at them as permanent, yeah, you have a much bigger challenge, whether going to depression or even worse. So, if you look at them as temporary, then, and something my parents taught me long ago, you're not the first person to go through this. So there's other
Yeah.
references out there on how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I talk to people and I coach people and do these things and help people, that's exactly where we start. It's like, you think you're special. And
Right.
I mean, I share a story what happened. I was actually driving back from a speaking engagement down in Georgia. Going out to Georgia, I was on I-95. I've never been on I-95 on the East Coast. It's like a parking lot. But
Okay.
I was sitting there and I get this phone call, Holly, from a friend. And he said, "I need your help." Sure. He said, "I got a friend. She's locked herself in a cabin up in a cottage in northern Ontario. She's just survived the avalanche in Nepal. She won't come out. She won't talk. Can you talk to her?" I said, "What do I know about avalanches? I know nothing." She said,
Right.
"Well," he said, "Well, you survived a plane crash." I said,
Yeah.
"Okay, yeah." So I said, "What do you talk to her?" So I talked to her, and she was having survivor guilt. She was one of 4 people that actually survived. The other people all perished. So she was
Wow.
locked down. She was not communicating. She would not let anybody talk. So I said, "Give me a couple of days. Let me figure this thing out."
Yeah.
So what I did, this the reason I'm telling you stories, is the answer it sort of gives you a reference for this question. Is I said, okay, my belief system is if there's a strategy and I find it, I can handle it.
Right.
All I look for is helping people find strategies. That's what I do
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
So I started making a couple phone calls. I called somebody in London who knew somebody in Italy who knew somebody down in Liberia.
Mm.
And we talked we got on this conference call, this guy in Liberia, and nice kid. And he's happy as heck. And basically what he does all day, Holly, is he gets water and comes home. He has no
Wow.
money, but he's happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, "Would you get on a call with me with this lady?" So we hooked up this call between Liberia, the UK, Canada, and me.
Wow.
And all I did is I asked him just to talk to her about, what's
Mhm.
his day like. And
Right.
what it did for her, she finally understood, she survived for a reason. There's no
Yes.
reason that you can be happy for no reason.
Right.
And I told her, I said, "You have a bigger calling, right? If
Mm.
God wanted you to die that day, you would have died. He has a
Right.
bigger calling for that triggered her. I think when I mentioned
Yes.
God, it triggered her because,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden, I knew that she started recovering at that point. So to answer your question about that, yeah, when people are going through this situation, you're not the first person. And there's
Right.
other references out there. So the strategy is find the resources to accomplish what you want to accomplish and make sure you hook up with them. Well, how do you hook up with them? And now, Holly, it's easier than ever because you can get on the internet and find them.
True. That's very true.
You
Yeah.
know?
The world has gotten smaller in that way for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's so many more ways than it was when I was a kid in the 60s and you had to go, your mom and dad told you to go to the library and read about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, now you get on the internet in 2 minutes, find somebody who's had this situation and potentially
Right.
even talk to them.
Yes. I love that. One of the other things in your book that really resonated with me, and I've thought about it from sort of multiple aspects. One, well, let me read it first and then we'll talk about it. You write, you need to develop your physical resilience to ensure you are ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
You must also develop your emotional durability to the point that you feel ready to handle anything and can say, move out of the way, let me handle it.
Right.
And so I thought about this from 2 aspects. One, it resonated with me obviously because I definitely share that same sort of belief system and value those things and think that they're critical for success in life. Not necessarily financial success, but just to be a high functioning human being that contributes to other people. But I also thought about it in terms of parenting. I don't know if yes, you do have kids. And it's like, and I see this with, employees that make their way through my law firm, and I see this with my kids, and it's like, sometimes I just think, where is the grit in people anymore, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm worried that it's missing. So how do people, physical resilience, yes, like you've got to be fit, you've got to do things that are hard physically. Yes, I feel like that's kind of the easier one.
That's exactly correct.
But the emotional durability, if people who are watching and listening to this are thinking, man, I'm really not all that emotionally durable myself, like what do they do? And from a parenting perspective, how do we make sure that we are instilling this in our kids and the younger generations?
Great question. I'll answer it in two parts. Number one, I was very blessed to have parents that made their kids, my sister and brother and I, make decisions when we were young and have consequences.
Right.
See, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that's going on now, just in my personal perspective, is we made our kids make decisions, and they also had consequences when they were young. Yes. So when they got to high school, after high school or college and beyond, they could make a decision. Now, they're not going to make the right decision every time. No one does, and especially a kid. But they learned to be able to, if they made a decision and it wasn't right, they had other options. So
yes, and the stakes were lower. When
exactly.
When you're making a decision at 10 years old, chances are it's not going to be necessarily like completely life altering.
But you lose practice. $10. You lose the $10 because you screwed up, right? Okay.
Right. Yes.
But when you get older, as you know, right, it could be severe consequences.
Right.
So the second thing that we did with our kids, and this is what I did my TED Talk on, it's about post-traumatic growth. How do you grow out of traumatic life experience? And one of the things I shared then and I teach now, and this is something I really impacted on my kids, especially after the plane crash, because my kids were having their own experiences, right?
Yes.
Is that the meaning you attach to something produces your emotion, and emotion is your life. So whatever meaning you're attaching to is how you're going to act. Right. So, and I'll give you an example of what happened. So about 6 weeks after the miracle on the Hudson, myself and about 25 other passengers and the crew were on Good Morning America. All right. And that's actually when I found out, Holly, I was the last passenger out, because they actually showed me the picture of me being the last passenger out.
Okay.
But we're, you probably know this being in where you are, but they all have green rooms, right? Where they take you and hold you and all this stuff. So we're back in the green room. We're all talking, but one of the passengers just started going off. I would say he got very emotional, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Excuse my language. We survived a plane crash. We're on national TV. All right. Life could be worse.
Right. That's life could be a lot worse.
Come on. We have that different situation. But what I realized is the meaning he attached to the plane crash was devastation, because what I found out was he was going through a divorce and his company cut his job right after the miracle on the Hudson. So the meaning he attached to the plane crash was devastation.
Right.
The meaning I attached, it was a blessing because it opened up a whole new world for me.
Right.
So that was the emotion I was living in. I was in gratitude, where he was in devastation, and I don't want to talk to anybody. You guys are all horrible because I lost everything because of this. Right. And one of the things I start off my talks with is it's easy to blame events, but if you keep blaming events, you never give yourself the opportunity to grow. You can't blame events.
Yeah.
And what kids often do is blame the event, right? People do it all the time. Well, if this didn't happen, then I would be a lot better off, right? Well, yeah, but it happens to everybody. So so you can't blame events, but that's why you have to watch what meaning are you attaching to this? And I try to help people reframe meanings, and just ask. So the emotional strength comes from asking a different question. And people say, "Well, I can't do this." Well, I know you can, Holly, but if you could, how would you do it?
Right.
And all of a sudden they're like, well, if I could, I'd do this, this, and this. There's your strategy. It's like that easy, but no one ever asked that question.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. To repeat the question, because I'm going to write it down.
Okay. Yeah. So you may have your child may come to you and say, Mom, I can't do this. You say, hey, Tony, hey, I know you can't, but if you could, how would you do it?
I know you can't, but if you could, how would you? Yes.
Because you're acknowledging you're right. You can do it. Right. All right. I'm acknowledging you're right. But if you could, what would you do? How would you handle it? Well, Mom, if I could do it, I'd be able to do this, this, and this. If I had more money, how much more money would that take? Yeah. Let's find a way for you to earn that money.
Yeah.
It's just asking that right question. But that question reframes the meaning.
Right.
Reframing meanings. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So that also, I actually kind of had this question earlier and I forgot to ask
Yeah.
it, but now it's back in my mind again. Um, the question ultimately was going to be, okay, you have taken this experience and done something extraordinary with it. And my original question was, were there survivors from the Miracle on the Hudson that actually sort of spiraled downward? And it feels like the answer is yes. Did that particular guy ever get back out of it?
No, yeah, when he walked out of that situation, he said he never wanted to see us ever again. And you know
Wow.
what? I honor that. He had to go through his own world, right?
Right?
But yeah, that was quite a shocking experience after being on Good Morning America. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. So this is bringing me back to me when I was 16 years old because my brother was killed in a car accident. And my parents, being the most amazing parents that I could have ever asked for, made a ton of resources available to me to grieve and get through that and to grow from it. And one of those resources that, was available to me were to go to these grief groups. And being 16 years old, I remember sitting in the circle and there were these like yellow plastic chairs that we were all sitting in. And I remember looking around at the circle and like some of the people in that circle were adults that their tragedy, their thing that they were grieving and trying to get through was like 15 years ago. And mine was like 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
and they were struggling with all these things and they were so devastated, which of course, rightfully so. Anyone that goes through, something tragic in their life, yes, of course, there's devastation, there's grief, there's all those things. But I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be in a grief group in this circle in these yellow plastic chairs at 30 years old, still saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why me? And I remember thinking, there's a fork in this road. And this one, people go on and do extraordinary things with these terrible circumstances. And this one over here, like they're still in this circle 15 years later.
well, you
And
did two
so,
things. There's two things that I appreciate you sharing that because there's two things that happen in that. Number one, one of the greatest things your parents did for you is get you out of the house and get you in front of people, so you get
yeah.
out. So that's the number one thing, and that's what I tell people. So that how is one of the ways I started turning it around is I got out, started getting it out of my body because once it's in your body, part two, I would hallucinate those people who are in that chair, have been there for 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Things stack so deep in there, they can't get out, and they
Right.
saw no pathway out because it's stack, 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 right?
Yeah.
You had 2 weeks of stacking, which
Right.
which is still tough, but your parents gave you the gift of getting out, getting with other people, because once you get it out of your body, now it's out.
Right.
Now if you bring it back in, that's your call, but it's out. All right.
Yeah.
So there's nothing you can do with it now. It's out.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So if somebody's listening to this right now and they're sort of in that place of immense grief, it sounds like maybe one of the first things they should do is just sort of get out of the house and like get it out of their, is that how you say it? Get it out of your body?
Get it out of your body. I mean, after my TED talk, I was coaching some people around this, and the first thing I told them was, I said, what we're going to do is this. We're going to call the Chamber of Commerce or Rotary Church. I don't care. We're going to call somebody, and you're going to go speak about it.
Wow.
I'm not
Yeah.
like you. I can't speak. But yeah, we're going to speak because once you speak, it gets out.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that was like the quickest way I could turn somebody around is because they would sit in a room and just stack, 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 and all of a sudden, the deeper it is, it's harder to get out of that thing. So let's go
Wow.
talk. Let's go talk. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I'm talking to somebody now whose husband, who came back from Iraq, he did 2 tours, got PTSD. She's been dealing with this thing now for how many, 15 years or something, whatever, right?
Yes.
And she's finally overcoming it. I'm talking to her about how to write this book about getting it out to other people. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just that's a strategy that I learned and I've used with my kids because my kids get that way too, right?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, so you got to snap them out. You got to change their state some way. So
Right. Change their state.
yeah,
What
change
are
your state.
some other ways to change a person's state? If
Yeah,
if
there's 3
somebody's listening
ways.
to this and they're like, I can't get out.
There's 3 ways. First,
Okay.
fastest way is physically moving your body,
Mm-hmm.
physiology. And so why do you see a baseball player when he goes up to bat do certain things? He's changing his state because he knows once he gets in there with Clayton Kershaw and that curveball's coming, right?
Yeah.
If I better be in my top state. And the fastest way is through physiology. Second way, to the questions you ask yourself, like I just talked about, your internal dialogue. And that's how I changed my state on that day on the plane. I couldn't get up and move around, of course, because everything's going down. But I was asking myself different questions, saying different things like, okay, if I survive this thing, it's got to be aisle up out, right? So I was focusing, which is the third step, what you focus on. That's what the captain used to manage his state. Yeah. And, I've talked to him several times. And one of the things that people ask me, and I asked him once, is that they asked me, do you think the captain was praying while all this was going on? I asked him, he said, no, I had 149 other people praying. I had to focus on what to get done. And I thought that was immensely insightful, right?
Because I would have said, of course he's praying. Like, well, what else is there to do? But that is fascinating.
He had to focus. He had 4 options. And one of the most amazing things about this is when he focused, all of a sudden the answers came to him. Right. And the answer, he had to make a decision within 20 seconds, right? He had 4 options, make a decision, 20 seconds, execute.
Right.
So just think, and we all had to do that in some way, right? And his 4 options, if you don't know his 4 options was, number 1, he was right there over the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. Put it down the ocean. Not good, right? Yeah. No one to rescue you, right? Plus enough water. Second thing was Teterboro, right? There's an airport right there. Yes. But if there's so many skyscrapers, if he goes a little lower, doesn't do it right, takes off a skyscraper. Not good. Right, Third is get back to LaGuardia. If you saw the movie Sully, they proved out. They proved out that wasn't an option. He wouldn't have got there. Fourth option was the river. Boom, 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 boom. Focus. Let's go. So this is really a case study on how to manage your state on all parts, right? Yes. Passengers, crew, captain, flight attendants, everybody, how they manage their state that day.
So, okay, so this is my last question.
Okay.
Because when you tell me that, okay, you're sitting there and suddenly you're like aisle up and out, suddenly this sort of game plan comes to you. I'm putting myself in those shoes going, oh man, I think only by the grace of God would I be able to focus and develop a game plan in that moment. Yep. Do you think some of this is just divine intervention?
Most definitely.
Okay.
I do. I think God's hands are all over this. My first magazine interview, Holly, you may know this gentleman because you're on the West Coast, a guy by the name of Rick Warren.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Purpose-driven
life. I got a call from his office to interview me for his magazine, Mission Purpose Leadership. Okay. And so I got interviewed by him. Yeah. And they named the article, God's Hands Was All Over Us. Because I told him, I said, if you look at this from a big picture, I know a lot of people don't want to talk that perspective, but look, let's take a few things into this equation. Yeah. Number 1, you're in the busiest city in the country at rush hour, right?
Yes.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
And all of a sudden you have the right captain on the plane. Yeah. All the passengers did not freak out. There were the right people in the right places, right?
Yeah.
So all these little miracles, right? How do all these miracles come together?
Right. Yes.
Right? I mean, my belief system, there's something greater going on here, right?
For sure. Yes.
And then the way I ended is like, you know what? Maybe this was just a message for people around the world because, once again, a point of reference. This was 2009. We were 5 days from a new president, right? Obama was coming in. Yeah. All this turmoil was going on, right? Financial crisis in the country. And now you have a miracle in the busiest city at the busiest time of the day for the whole world to see. Right. And say, okay, you know what? I'm still here. Yes. I'm still here.
Oh, I love it.
And it's still the highest tweeted event ever in history.
Really?
Highest tweeted event in history. So
that is amazing.
How about how quickly that message got out around the world, just Twitter, right?
Yes.
And you saw it on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So,
Well, yeah, Aaron, my producer, he at that time in his life, he worked in news and he was like, we couldn't get enough for weeks. Like that. I mean, it was.
I still get interviewed. I get interviewed every January 15th someplace.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Yep. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to hear your story, and it is absolutely amazing what you've done in your life and for so many people since that event. So thank you for that too.
Thank you very much for having me, Holly. I look forward to being with you sometime.
I've got just a little bit more to say. Well, actually, I have a lot to say. I don't even know where to go with this third segment because I feel like there were so many absolutely valuable nuggets in my conversation with Dave. So I'm just gonna roll through the main thoughts that I wrote down. I don't usually write this much down on my cards, but there were so many things. So I'm just gonna roll through them and you guys take what resonates with you. 1, you can't blame events. Like, events happen, it is what it is, you can't blame them. But the meaning you attach to them controls your emotions, and your emotions are your life. That's so true. How we feel about things like dictates everything. The question that he says to ask, I know you can't, but if you could, what would you do? I'm writing that down elsewhere and taking it with me everywhere I go. We all have a bigger calling. Oh, this hits me in my heart. I believe it to be true so much. But the real test, the real quest is like, how do you get to your higher calling? How do you serve your purpose? What is our purpose here on earth? And how do we do things every day towards that end? Problems are not permanent. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get this tattooed on my forehead. Problems are not permanent. If you can't, you must. When you're going down, manage your state. He was going down in an airplane, but you know, we all go down in different ways every single day, and we have to be able to manage our state. And I think the 3 tips to be able to change our state, easiest one is physically. Get out of your body, talk about it, move, do something physically. Secondly, your internal dialogue. What are you telling yourself in your mind? And third, focus. The focus that the captain had on that plane, the focus that he had to have his strategy of aisle up and out, man, amazing. So I know that's a lot that I just threw at you. I just kind of threw it up on you, but there was literally so many good moments in that conversation. I didn't even know which way to go. So I gave you all of them. Never forget, you were made for more.
A prenuptial agreement, or sometimes called a premarital agreement, is an agreement that 2 parties enter into before they get married that basically chooses to deviate from state law. It assigns rights and responsibilities regarding assets and debts that are acquired during the marriage. Some common misconceptions about prenups are 1, that they basically doom the marriage to failure, or that it's really planning to divorce, and neither of those things are true. But the real value of a prenup is talking about and creating rules around how the things that you acquire during the marriage are going to be characterized. A prenup can protect things like art collections, real estate portfolios, businesses, all those types of assets. The ideal timeline to get a prenup is not 2 weeks before the wedding. The final version of a prenup has to be presented to the parties 7 days before they actually sign it. So there's like a 7-day waiting period. As soon as you get engaged, you should seek a lawyer's advice and counsel on a prenup and start the process then, because the closer the prenup is signed to the wedding, the more likely that the court is going to think there was some sort of duress involved in that person signing it, and they have to prove that the prenup was signed voluntarily in order for them to be enforced. At Moore Family Law Group, we represent a lot of high-profile people, celebrities, professional athletes, business tycoons. If you already have a lot of assets, or you think you're going to be acquiring a lot of assets during your marriage, we are the best ones to protect that for you and help you make your marriage stronger. Call Moore Family Law Group today.